Welcome back to BTR on YouTube. I'm Holli Brummett, and I'm here with Whitney Gaskins. Dr. Gaskins is her formal position. She's the Assistant Dean of Inclusive Excellence and Community Engagement in the University of Cincinnati College of Engineering and Applied Science, and I think that's a fantastic title. Some of her credentials are she's a Bachelor of Science in Biomedical Engineering. She has a Master's of Business Administration in Quantitative Analysis, and she's a Doctorate of Philosophy in Biomedical Engineering and Engineering Education. Those are just some incredible credentials, Whitney, and I absolutely love that you put in your bio here, you're the only African-American female currently teaching in the faculty of the College of Engineering. And I think that's really important to highlight, especially during Black History Month. You serve as a principal investigator for grant programs. And one of the things that we really want to highlight for this interview is your Gaskins Foundation. We want to know more about what your mission is and how you're doing that. Before we get into that, though, I do want to share some important things about Whitney. And one of the things I absolutely love about her, she just published her first children's book. It's called Math ABCs. And even my 12-year-old Whitney said, this is kind of a cool book. and I had it sitting on the dining room table when it came in, and it has since disappeared. So I have a feeling one of my kids have absconded it, and I love that. Other than the numerous accolades, prestigious awards, Greater Cincinnati Chamber named you Black History Maker. I mean, there's just so much about you, and I'm so thrilled to be interviewing you. The biggest thing I love about you is that you're a childhood friend of mine, and we have shared so many incredible memories with sleepovers and playing in the woods and doing those kinds of things. So welcome, Whitney. We're so honored to have you and glad to be getting to finally highlight some of the great things that you're doing.
I am so happy to be here. It is so nice to be able to speak with you about some of the things that have been going on in my life. And again, I echo the same sentiment. It's so nice to talk to a childhood friend. Like, we've known each other for so long. So again, thank you for highlighting.
Yeah. So today we're going to bring this interview as part of BTR's Diversity and Inclusion Committee Black History Month Feature Friday initiative, which is a lot of ways to say this is important, and we think everybody should know about it. Each Friday in February, we highlight different Black leaders in tech, business, innovation, social justice, and we want you to make sure that you subscribe to our channel, follow us on YouTube, on social media, for all of the Feature Fridays happening this month and in the future. So let's get into learning a little bit more about you, Whitney. Who are you? Who is Whitney Gaskins? And what inspired you to get into biomedical engineering? If you can just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So who am I is a complex question because I'm
right.
So many things. I usually use the moniker, I'm an empowerment enthusiast, a motivational speaker, and an engineer. And I think that encompasses so much of my identity because those are things that are really, really important to me. I think the other things that are important to note are people forget how important family is to me. And I'm a wife and a mother and a daughter and a sister. All of those things are almost as important to me, if not equally as important to me as anything else that I've done. I guess I'll start with the engineer part first because all of my credentials started with engineering. And so it's not weird for me to say, oh, I'm an engineer. And because I still use all of those skills, even though I'm working as an administrator in higher education, I use the problem solving skills every day in my job. I think that it's also important for me to say the path is never straight for anyone. Like, so in my mind, I thought I was going to be doing something totally different than what I'm doing now. I've ran from education my whole life because I'm fortunate to have educating parents. They worked as middle school and high school teachers. And I was like, that seems horrible. Like, I saw them grading papers and working really hard all the time. It's almost a thankless job. So I was like, I don't ever want to do it. But lo and behold, I'm back here doing it. Really trying to make sure that people have the same opportunities that I've been able to have so they too can do whatever it is that they want that looks like success for them. You ask why engineering? It's one of the only careers without like being a medical doctor, that I feel like every discipline is people centered. We literally, engineers, what they work on every day is problem solving. And a lot of them are to make the world a better place for everyone. And I love that.
Yeah, yeah, that's fantastic. So one of the big things that we wanted to highlight while we have you with us is your foundation, the Gaskins Foundation. Um, how are you using this to educate and empower your community?
Yeah, so my foundation does K through 12 STEM programming. And so it's wonderful that we have this organization that is partnered not just in the community, because we are at churches, but we're also in the school systems. And so what the program is called Stimulates, and it's a Saturday programming. So the first Saturday of every month, parents bring their students to either, well, pre-pandemic would bring their students to a location, whether at a church. Sometimes we were at the University of Cincinnati, and they got to do hands-on experiments that helped explore the world of science and engineering. On top of all of that, we've expanded not just to be in Cincinnati, but we're also in Columbus and we're also in Cleveland. And it's wonderful because it helps engage the whole family. So it's students that get to have educational enrichment, but parents that also get to learn that educational enrichment doesn't have to be robust. Like we think we have to buy lots of computers and complex robots. And every day, there are everyday household items that can help teach you hands-on science and engineering. That's what we do, and we love it. And so that's the Saturday programming. But we also have after-school programming, in-school programming, and we have a program called Algebra by Seventh Grade, which is really, really important to our numeracy campaign, because we find that students, especially Black students, are only 40% proficient in math by the time they're in fourth grade. It's critical that we fix that if we're going to have a diverse workforce, if we're going to have students that actually can enter into fields for STEM. Um, just overall education, that's a nasty number to think that 60% of our students aren't even on par with what we say our learning standards are going to be.
Gosh, and you're absolutely right. That is so incredibly important. You know, if we want things to grow and change, we got to start at the base level. You know what I mean? We got to give people those building blocks to make that happen.
Yeah.
I read in one of your blogs that you were addressing some of those racial disparities, specifically to K-12 education. And the statistics you shared, 61% of ACT tested Black students in 2015 met none of the 4 ACT college readiness benchmarks. And that seems shocking to me. That just seems shocking. Can you cite a few reasons why you think that is?
Yeah, there are quite a few reasons. One, the educational disparity I just talked about in numeracy. So how are you expected to handle math if by the fourth grade you're already off track? So if we aren't getting all of our students on board, all you do is fall further and further and further behind. And a lot of it is because we don't have numeracy as a priority in our society. Literacy was the same way at one point, right? There was a time when there was a large majority of our population illiterate, but would there have been numerous, no pun intended, numerous literacy campaigns to ensure that we were a literate society, that people would be able to read and write. It's now time to couple the two, which is why I wrote the book that I did, the Math ABCs. It couples literacy with numeracy so we can get more comfortable as a society understanding math. I don't know how many people have heard this, because I hear this even from my own household. My mother would say this, "Oh, I don't really like math," or I don't do math." And that's socially acceptable. It's okay to be like, "Well, I don't like math." Or but you don't ever hear people say, "Oh, I don't like that. I'm not going to read. I don't know how to read," because we've kind of made it socially unacceptable, right? We would put you immediately in a literacy program or give you resources to help you learn how to read. We need the same attention now to math skills, so that way we can see those improvements educationally. They go hand in hand. Literacy and numeracy can work together so that we have a more educated society. So that way they also are able to go after whatever those dreams may be. It is staggering that it's across all the boards. I focus on math and science because I think that's what's important to me. But we have a lot of work to do when we even talk about English and reading as well. I will say this
Yeah.
about the reading, is critical. There are stats that show that the reason why people are not necessarily on par, even on the reading, is just access to books. Yes, there are libraries and there are lots of options for children's books, but some people just don't know where to go or have the time or the resources to provide books. So you may hear about Dolly Parton's initiative where she has a way for parents to sign their children up and books are sent to their homes. She started that campaign particularly for the same reason. We know that when children in their homes have access to books, they do better when it comes to reading and reading comprehension. Also, why I wrote a children's book. We need to get this into homes so that way families have access to books that can help with both literacy and numeracy.
Yeah, share a little bit more about your book. First of all, how can people get it? I think that's important that, that gets known. But then also like share a little bit about who Waylon and Wesley are and
Yeah.
the main characters of the book and why math ABCs.
Thank you for that. I forget the main characters are so, I told you family is critically important to me. And out of, I feel like trauma, I was able to birth something amazing. I, Waylon and Wesley are my children. Wesley, however, has passed and has gone home. And it was based out of, I'm sure other women have had this misfortune, but when I gave birth, she didn't survive the birthing process. And so I wrote this book for in her honor because I want to honor the legacy of her life. She was so important to me, even though we only met her for a second. She was just so important to me and the life that we live. Waylon is my son, who is now 18 months. So happy to have been able to have a child after all. And so the book, they're the main characters, Wesley and Waylon, in the story. I've talked about this, but I want to highlight that the book was written because I really believe that math can be less intimidating and that we can really work towards a more numerate society, just like we worked towards a more literate society. I think it's important to put it in ways where you might be able to understand, make it a little bit more fun, and representation matters. So it's nice because the characters in the book look like me. So if a little boy or girl were to see the book, they could say, "Oh, I look like them," and they're engaging in math. And so that was it
I love
really
it.
important.
That is super special.
Yeah.
So we mentioned that we're hometown besties, and one of the things that since growing up alongside you and becoming adults, I've discovered some of the covert and overt discriminations that have occurred in our hometown, and you've described some of those experiences to me that I had no clue was going on as we were growing up. When people are looking for ways to support their own community in ways like communication or education or math or technology, what are some of the things that they can be looking for as maybe a first step to getting to supporting their community that way?
Yeah, I think one of the major steps is to get involved. I think a lot of the times we only get involved with things that are comfortable or that we really know about. I know a lot of people that are involved in animal rights campaigns, which is wonderful because it's important as well. But maybe step into something a little bit more uncomfortable. Maybe it's working with a poverty collaborative. Maybe it's working in the educational system and actually listen to the experiences that people are having. The racial disparity is real. I lived it, and so it really is something that people don't understand. This is a lived experience. This isn't theoretical. The things that my parents had to do to make sure I could even just navigate through school is, I think, jaw dropping. Like I've literally had to sit and call them and say thank you for all of the ways that they had to fight for me. If you know about these things, maybe it's time for you to engage and help fix those behaviors. You shouldn't have to have parents like mine that were willing to sacrifice and go to the school almost every day to stop the behavior. Maybe it's time for people to engage in, well, this policy is inequitable. Let's fix it. And really do that. It is going to be uncomfortable at first. Anyone's journey, especially when we're in the fight of equity, is always a little uncomfortable because you're pushing against a norm. But we have to remember, is that the norm that you want to be a part of? I always am like, I want to be on the right side of history when any issue comes along. That's part of it. So when I know something isn't going well, I need to come up with a solution to fix it, or at least be part of the solution and do my part. It can be as small as reading about an issue, but I would really encourage someone to engage actively in the community where you reside. Even if you donate $5 to a cause that you know is helping with some inequitable process, that's also a start.
Yeah, yeah. It's us versus the problem. It's not you versus me. And
Exactly.
that's an important focus for sure.
Mhm.
So if we want to learn more about your organization, where can we find you?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's easy, I think. It's my name. So WhitneyGaskins.com. You can find more about me and some of the work that I have going. That's also where you can purchase Math ABCs. But you can also go to the GaskinsFoundation.org. That is the foundation's website where you can learn more about the programs that we have. If you would love to have the stimulating Saturdays in your communities, we are open to expanding, and we can have those conversations as well. So really excited for you to plug in and engage. We are happy to engage in any way.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Whitney, for sharing a little bit about your heart and a little bit about your incredible work that you're doing. BTR really believes in the endeavors that you're doing. We are a technology company, and we thrive when we include everybody. And so
Yeah.
we are just really excited that that you're getting to share with us today. Thank you so much again for impacting your community. And like the Greater Chamber of Cincinnati says, I completely agree. You're a history maker, not just a Black one. You're a history maker, period. I think you're doing some fantastic things. So I appreciate you and respect what you're doing. If you would like more information about Whitney, you can go to whitneygaskins.com. Her foundation website is gaskinsfoundation.com. And at those websites, you'll see links to her blogs, her research, the store where you can get the book, Math ABCs, and a host of more information about how you can support your community.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Whitney.
Thank you.